Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Hope you are good. If not, why not? Let's think about what we can do about that. Today is that day in Liverpool, the 10th of March, when we got all that snow, and now it's like largely gone, which is kind of how snow is in Liverpool because we are near the coast. So, all those people inland and in places around the world that get lots of snow, we don't get much snow in Liverpool because we are near the coast. And the snow people we build don't last long. I recently showed my son the cartoon film or illustrated film, The Snowman by Raymond Briggs, with that terrible scene at the end where the snowman melts. But obviously, there's some deep trauma from my youth when I first saw that. I remember how upset I was that he melted. And we used to watch it, I think, on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day each year. My mum, my dad, my aunt, my uncle, me and my sister. So some nice memories. But I'm going to do a podcast on snow because when it does happen in Liverpool, it is quite profound and it leaves a different type of memory. And the beauty of the snow is quite impressive. It just changes the way the world looks, and we just don't get it in Liverpool that often. So, podcast on that at some point in the future. Right, today I'm going to talk about a few things. The first thing I'm going to do, though, is talk about some of the self care ideas because it's just me speaking today on a few issues, and some of them will be to do with well being. I just want to say about well being because one of my themes is economic and financial survival, which is very difficult at the moment, and cost of living crisis, and also just the general nature of Britain at the moment. Although we're very lucky in this country compared to most people in the world, and most of the developed world, we really do take it in the neck from so many different angles, just like the cost of childcare, Brexit, you name it, we go through it. But I don't want to sound too negative there, so I'm going to start with 30 self-care ideas. But I just want to say that I do appreciate that poverty really gets in the way of well-being, and struggling to survive and being worried about what's happening on a week, day by day, month by month basis is very, very tough, and that does need to be stated clearly on these well-being podcasts. So I'm very much aware of that, and it's something that I really want to stress. First self-care idea today is to watch the sunrise. If you ever get a chance to see the sun come up and see that low angle light, that high definition light, it's absolutely beautiful, and it is the most beautiful part of the day. But as human beings, we often spend a lot of it in bed or busy preparing for other things, and we often miss this beauty around us. So try and watch the sunrise and just see how the world changes gradually and how calm and just natural it is and how beautiful. Read a book. People read less because of mobile phones and the short attention span economy. And I remember, I think it was John Kabat-Zinn saying once about ADHD. This is about 20 years ago. That the whole of society has got ADHD at the moment, and finding time to just sit down. Do you reckon watching a film is the new reading a book? Because of people's attention spans. I definitely don't read as much as I used to, but that's partly down to becoming a father. But I try to read every day, even if it's just for a few minutes. Reading a book is like traveling or dreaming with your eyes open, and it's such a pleasure reading a book. Doesn't matter what it is you're reading, find something that you love. Explore a place. People think, oh, I haven't got time to go off exploring. Sometimes exploring your own town or city, just going off the beaten track, doing something new or different. Might be driving home a new way, or just going somewhere or doing something you haven't done recently in a place that you're not overly familiar with can be beautiful, and it gives us novelty and freshness to our lives. What's your favourite movie? Now, my favourite movie for years was With Nail and I, but now I'm past that kind of drinking age and going mad age. I'd probably say that it's still With Nail and I because it's such a good film. If you haven't seen it, it's an absolute cracker. I think it's a good film to watch once you're in your 20s, but maybe once you get to your 40s, it's probably too late to watch it for the first time. But it's a great film. But whatever your favourite movie is, throw it on and really, really get into it. That deep pleasure. ideally with other people if you can. And finally, for today, is give yourself a manicure. Now, we've had a few like this before, and some people might say, well, I'm not really bothered what me nails look like or whatever. And there's things there about like the pressure on females to look a certain way. But do take pride in looking after yourself and doing little things that make you feel good about your appearance. And it doesn't even need to be a physical thing. It might just be like getting a shower and just feeling good about getting a shower. Or just doing something, having a shave, trying to be mindful when you're having a shave from a male perspective, whatever. Get a new hairstyle, a new haircut, whatever floats your boat. And these are the things sometimes which carry us through. So there's 5 more self-care ideas. There's 2 more sets of 5 to come in future podcasts. Hope you're enjoying them as much as I like saying them, because it reminds me as well. Right, just on mobile phones. Children try to take these into schools, into lessons, and I've seen young people who just literally cannot look away from the phone for a minute when they're in the middle of something. And I don't think it's good. I think it's a huge experiment on people's attention spans and people's mental health. Now, I'm not going to get into the stuff that I mentioned with Jess over things like eating orders and the role of social media and to do with politics and social media perverting politics and populism and all that stuff. I'm just going to focus on the concentration span impacts from these things. And when I started teaching in '99, I used to show clips from films or dramas and the kids would be hooked. And in recent years, I've noticed that's less the case. And I think the requirement to catch someone's attention now has to be a lot higher than it used to be because of social media, the smartphone, internet on your phone, but also things like TikTok. They used to call people the MTV generation. You look at MTV now, it's like, sitting in a cave for 10 years without speaking because of how fast it's gone since then. And I really am alarmed with what mobile phones are doing to people, particularly the way that they view themselves in terms of their self-image, which is another story I said I wouldn't go down, but just in terms of concentration span and mental health impacts. When I go to bed at night, I like to read. Sometimes I go on my phone and like scroll through, and I always feel worse for doing it, but I feel like a compulsion to do it. And the social media companies know this. They're trying to keep your attention for long, and they're trying to feed you what you like or what you think you like to keep you on there. And I think it's abhorrent. So try to read, and at night try not to look at the things. I mentioned in the sleep podcast about trying not to look at your phone through the night. Try not to go on your phone during the night. And I sometimes wake up in the night and just look at my phone to see what time it is, or I'll go to the loo and just have a quick look. How long have I got before my alarm goes off? That kind of thing. Spending time on your phone in bed is not helpful to your mental health, and you need to also set limits in the rest of the day. And we all know what it's like, how we feel when we go on our phone for too long. You feel like you've just ate too much crap food or junk food. It's the same kind of feeling. It's nice, and then afterwards you think that really wasn't good. So I just wanted to mention that about the phone, particularly at night. I think me going on my phone at night is both an indicator that my well-being isn't good, and it also further worsens my well-being. So it's almost like a double whammy. I've mentioned before about the importance of morning routines, like the Stoics said over 2,000 years ago. Make your mornings as easy as possible by getting ready the night before. But also, a big thing for me is making them as meaningful as possible. With the cold shower I get, I like reading the paper in the morning, and I like doing yoga or exercising in the morning. And it takes a while to get into those things. You think, oh, I'd love to spend the time in bed, and oh, I don't feel like that in the morning. Get into good habits and feel better forever, rather than just be given into that short termism of making the morning as much about being in bed as possible and then jumping up last minute. So find things in the morning that make you meaningful, and also remember to switch WhatsApp off in the background while you're doing a podcast, as I think I've said before. Another thing I want to speak about today is the importance of challenge in life, and I'm going to do another podcast on facing difficulty. There's a bit of a saying, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger, and going through difficult situations is character building. But what we don't want to do is have severe issues going on all the time in our lives. And I often break things up in our lives into four areas: your career, your relationships, your pastimes and hobbies, and your contributions, what you contribute to. And in each of those four realms, I think it's good to have one little area of challenge. So for me, 18 months ago, when I first got into the podcasting, I had to do quite a bit of work early on, learning how to podcast. And I'm still learning all the time. And I'm looking to do maybe video podcasts on YouTube soon so that you can see me and the person who comes on if they want that to happen. But I'm still a little bit not quite there yet with going public, because I usually just wear a hat and a house coat, particularly in winter because it's freezing. So maybe I've got some self-image issues that I need to address before I do video podcasts. But I'd like to expand that more, and I want you to get involved in North and South podcasts and North and South Education, CIC, which is a community interest company I've set up recently, about getting out in there into our communities, hearing positive stories, and look at how we can make our lives better moving forward. So I'm very much interested in that mission. So set yourself a bit of challenge. Obviously not too much challenge, so you're not at your comfort zone too much. But it might be, I don't know, you go running and you say, right, each time I go running, I'm going to try and run a little bit further. It might be in terms of your contributions. It might be that you give to charity once a month, and you might say, do you know what, maybe next month I'll increase that to two, who knows? Or it might be some voluntary time or more time you spend with family that you contribute to. Your career, it doesn't mean about like throwing the towel in and going for another job, but it might be what aspect of that your career is sometimes tough. So for example, as a teacher, you sometimes have a difficult class and you could say to yourself, what could I do differently next time? What if next time I just stay completely calm and try this tactic? If it doesn't work, do something else, maybe. And in our relationships, how can we make our relationships better? Are you a good listener? Do you go on your phone while other people are talking? Can you set yourself a little challenge in that regard? So these are all little things we can be thinking about in terms of challenge, just moving ourselves forward, making ourselves a little bit better day by day. And you will have times when you'll take big steps backwards or have a bit of a crisis or whatever. That's okay too, because we're looking for a general trend of improvement. But we are going to have these bad times and things that go wrong and bad days. It's how we navigate them and the long-term trend that is the most important. Another big thing is the anxiety over what could go wrong, and we worry about things. So it might be a job interview or public speaking or whatever it might be. And if you write down everything that might go wrong and then the likelihood of that happening, and then by writing it out, exploring the emotions, go through it. Because what happens is we tell other people and they go, well, what are you scared of? And you say it and they go, well, how likely is that to happen? Okay, you've got nothing to worry about. Da, 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 da. But still, it's hard for you. But you do feel better once they've said that. If you haven't got someone who you can be speaking to constantly like that, writing it out rather than just letting it swim around your head, looking at it and then coming up with little things. Is that actually real, that feeling? Or is it a fear or whatever? What are the chances of that actually happening? And you can apply this to anything. Now, let me give you an example. I'm a teacher. If I went in on Monday and someone said to me, listen, we're a bit concerned about how things are going, we're going to have a meeting with you next week. I go, oh, okay. He brings in, listen, we're a bit concerned about your performance. It doesn't seem to be going too well. You know, your results are low, etc., etc. You know, what do you think? And I go, well, you know, yeah, maybe I could improve on certain things. These are my targets. Take possession of the situation. Say, I would like to improve A, B, and C. What are your impressions? And they might come up with a few, and you go, oh, okay, we'll work towards that. Well, let's imagine you go through a process and it doesn't work out, and they think, yeah, we think we're gonna, let you go. Imagine if you just said, oh, okay then, without getting stressed or anxious about it. It wouldn't change anything. It wouldn't change a thing. It wouldn't make anything worse. But you just went, okay, Maybe this is just a sign that I need to move on. My face doesn't fit. I need to do something new. Imagine you did that instead of all the negative feelings that we often associate with those kind of things. Imagine you just took it at face value and thought, well, I haven't been told I've got cancer and I've got a month to live. Now, that might happen to you as well, but there are ways that you can approach that too. But imagine we could take control of these situations and take them in our stride and move on. And that essentially is wisdom, is enlightenment. It's the good life. It's what we want to achieve ultimately. And it's hard because we are programmed to get anxious about things, because we're worried about things, because we think it'll impact on whether others around us will accept us, going back to evolution and keeping your tribe or your 150 people you mixed with happy, not being ostracised, not being judged. These are all deep emotions, but what if we could harbour them? Doesn't mean we dismiss them. It means that we're aware of them and we can control them. And we can say, okay, I'm feeling this emotion for these reasons. However, I know that it's better to be like, and think about your strategy moving forward. It's definitely not easy, and it's definitely something I haven't mastered, but it is something that I have got better at through the years, through hard work, through journaling, through counselling, through wanting to get better. Another thing I wanted to talk about is winning the lottery, because a lot of people say, oh, I might win the lottery this Friday. It's almost like a little bit of a coping mechanism, and you're half joking because you know that I think you've got more chances of being struck by lightning or dying before winning the lottery outright in the next week from after you've bought the ticket or whatever. But if I won the lottery, I'm just going to go into a little thought experiment here. I would probably set an alarm in the morning and get up each day and do something. And I remember a friend's dad, after he retired, used to get up at 6:30 when they were all getting ready for work and jump in the shower and take one of the children of the family to school. And that was his start to the day, going back to those morning routines we talked about earlier. He got up, he got showered, he got dressed, and he was out the door every morning, and that made him feel better. And I remember thinking, I really respect the way he does that. He's took control of things there, and he's starting off with that discipline every single morning. And I reckon if I won the lottery, this is just my personal opinion, I would probably set alarms each day and look to do things each day that had deep meaning for me, which is not just going out and drinking and going on holidays all the time and all that. Yeah, there's a time and a place for all that, but I'd probably just do simple things like a bit of volunteering, maybe helping someone out. If someone had a bit of an issue, I'd say, yeah, I'll come round and I'll help you decorate or whatever on these 2 days. Let me just put it in my diary. I'd do that, and I'd absolutely love it, because I know that I can be flexible, but I can also discipline myself, and I can have a bit of freedom in my life. They often say people who win lotteries aren't happy, but that is a theory I would like to test personally. I don't know about you lot out there. Because what kind of things make us happy? We know through studies that family relationships, good relationships with friends, being out in nature and having new experiences all make us happier. So if you spent money on those things instead of a Ferrari, a big holiday, impressing someone, buying jewellery, which we know can be part of happiness, but aren't part of long-term happiness. If you know that, hopefully you'll be able to navigate that and be aware of the fact that it's not all about the money. Because if you live in poverty, as I said earlier, that's no existence. If you live above the average wage or slightly below the average wage, you might get by, you might have different lifestyles, etc. Who's to judge anyone? But the evidence would suggest that once you get to the average wage, people who earn more than that often don't use that money in a way that makes them happy. And I think these are all important breakthroughs for us to understand and apply to our old lives. So, the lottery gods, please let me win a big lottery win, and I promise to make my life more meaningful and the lives of others more meaningful, who I can help as well. So, just throwing that one out there. And finally, I just want to respect my dad as well. I haven't spoken to me. I haven't spoke a lot about my mum and dad on this podcast because they might listen to this and all that. But I do love my mum and dad, and they were on the first two podcasts. If you go back to episodes 2 and 3, I think it is, because one was the intro. It's them talking about growing up, and I learnt a lot about them from those podcasts because it's about my history, but also people's history from like a generation or two ago that's quickly forgotten. But my dad is a really happy person. He gets up in the morning, he goes to shop and gets the paper. He's retired. He does the crossword. He has a cup of coffee. He helps care for my son. He can pick my son up from nursery, bring him home, and he's as happy as Larry. And I really admire the way he can just sit in his own company in a room. Like Leibniz said, a lot of humans, they just can't sit in a room and be content. My dad can probably just sit in a room and just be quite content and happy in his own company. And isn't that where we would all like to be? Just happy in the moment, enjoying our lives and making the most of every second and every day. So well done, Dad. I wish it was more like you rather than the neurotic person I am. Thanks everyone. Have a great day. Please like, share with at least one other person. Subscribe on YouTube and Spotify. If you can, make the contribution of a cup of coffee once a month through the podcast notes at coffee.com. Enjoy the snow while it lasts, all you Liverpool people. And everyone have a great day. If you've got things on your mind and you can't get them out or deal with them, write them down and come up with little steps to make it better. Take it easy, everyone.